You are listening to Young and Heard Podcast.
Welcome back to our Young and Heard podcast. We're so happy to be back with you guys. We have some guests here. We have some friends. I love this group. Okay, this is not the group that I usually do the podcast with, so I'm just excited to be able to have some people back. But before we get started on our topic, okay, we're going to first of all introduce ourselves. Say your name, because there's some people that are just listening to us and they might not recognize your voice. Say your name, and what I want you to tell me is one thing that you judged at the beginning, but now you love. One thing that you were like, you didn't like it, or you thought it was dumb or silly or whatever.
Overall?
Anything, a movie, an artist, a song, a person. You can say a person. That happens to me all the time. Wicho knows this. Wicho's back there, our producer, Wicho. Okay, I'll go first.
No, wait, I'm trying to think, and nothing comes to mind.
Okay, I'll go first. I'll go first, and I'm gonna admit this on camera. Okay, first of all, my name is Noe. The thing that I judged at first and now I like and I listen to is Bad Bunny. Okay, I used to I was like, this guy is so annoying. He's weird, whatever, you know. And now I'm like trying to buy his shoes and I can't get them, you know. I'm like signing up and I'm like anxious, like I gotta get those Bad Bunny shoes. And like I was like, his new album slaps. Like I wouldn't say that I'm the biggest fan, but that's something that I used to judge, and now I like it. Now I listen to it. So, okay, what? Okay.
My name is Cess. I don't know.
You? Okay, so just say it.
I thought you would have so many examples. You look like somebody that would have a lot of examples.
you look like you hate everything at first, and now you love it. Oh my God.
That is so. Hold
No,
on.
that's not what she meant. That's not what she meant. This is a
very
hot
rude.
podcast.
She's over here telling me that I judge everybody, and that I have a lot to say, and I don't.
No, but
You know what? I didn't like Leah at the beginning.
There you go.
So,
No, I didn't mean it.
podcast. I didn't like it.
I didn't mean it with people.
Yeah.
I meant it more like maybe like food or like because I feel like I've gone.
You are opinionated.
No, she's a.
that doesn't mean.
Okay.
I'm literally about to start crying.
I did not mean it in a negative way. They made it negative. Just calling that out.
Nobody can even hear you, so.
Cess is one of my closest friends, and I love her, and she's the best.
Okay. Well, I don't
but-
have one. Okay.
A TV show that you
Um,
thought was dumb, and now you're like, that's not a bad TV show.
No, I like The Office.
Oh,
Yeah.
WandaVision? Didn't you say you thought you didn't like it? And then
Okay, WandaVision. But that's only because it was in black and white.
at first, right?
Yeah. And then I was
I
like,
love it. It's
Yeah, it was really good.
Because it goes through the timelines.
So WandaVision, that's your one thing?
yeah, but I love it. So
Oh,
You
okay.
didn't like it, and then now you loved it. So there you go.
apparently everybody thinks I'm judgmental and
I never
actually
thought that.
Judge everyone.
Clarification. I
I
never thought
meant
that.
it with food.
That's cap.
I'm sorry. That's the last thing.
Okay, Leah, what's yours, Leah? What's
I
yours?
don't even want to say it no more.
Say it. Leah's also very opinionated, so
Okay, no, but mine's like, okay, so so in Puerto Rico there was this thing where everybody wore Crocs, like disgustingly, like ridiculous, like it looked like they were barefoot basically, like. No, and then it came this trend when I was like little, que se ponían tacones, que eran Crocs, like high heels that were Crocs, like that's how obsessed they were.
I've seen
in Puerto
pictures of
Rico.
those.
And then so I refused after that. I was like, I'm never buying a pair of Crocs.
Okay.
Exactly.
So
I
Crocs.
bought a pair of Crocs, and now like I literally cannot be barefoot in my house. I have to have my Crocs on, and that's all I have around my house. And my sister literally says those walk by themselves, and I'm like, mind your business.
What about you, Danny?
My name is Danny. One thing I really did hate was probably like sweet potatoes or yams.
What?
I did not like
love
it at
yams.
first, and
Sweet
then
potato fries or the
in general sweet potato. Like I never really thought it was that good. but Roadhouse made me get on it at my job.
Dude,
I literally was
yams
like, let me
are
eat it
so good.
like with
like
marshmallows,
sweet
honey
yams.
cinnamon butter.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, so amazing.
My
If you're gonna eat something sweet, it better not be no vegetable.
no, but
I-
have you ever had them? And they're good.
Ooh, I have another one. I used to hate aloe vera. If you're Hispanic, Savila. I used to hate Savila. I was
You
like,
eat that?
I eat it every day. I eat it like literally with every meal. It's really good for digestion.
What was it?
Okay, I don't
It's
like
aloe
that.
vera. Savila. Aloe vera. How do you say it?
Aloe vera. I love drinking it, dude. It's so good. Oh.
The aloe vera drink when it's chunky.
Like
Yes, yes.
I
mix-
love it.
So like mix with something.
No. I can literally eat it. I can literally
Like-
cut it open and just go
I-
and chew it.
I only use that. Okay, I'm about to expose
On your skin.
myself. Yes, like when I'm sunburned or my mom, I get a pimple. She's like, "Ponte Savila." And I'm
Yes.
Like, "Oh."
Because Savila is really good for your skin. It's really good for your stomach. Like, okay.
How does it taste?
It tastes,
Okay, I'm about to.
It's
be
bitter.
honest.
It's bitter.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
But it can be sweet.
in water for a little recipe here. If you put it in water for 15 minutes and then you cut it open and eat it, it's less bitter.
That
So
sounds like some pickled garlic over here.
I'm telling you, Savila goes
I mean,
hard
there's
now.
a trend on TikTok that people are eating pickled garlic. Like, no. Like,
Okay,
That's not okay.
I'm gonna have to go get around to this. Okay, talking about judging and talking about having opinions and sometimes being the worst critic and then changing around. The topic for today is unforgiveness. Okay, and there's two ways that you can go with this. Which and usually if you have both, if you have one of them, you have the other one, right? Okay, so this is the two ways. You can either not forgive yourself for something that you've done, hold on to it, and be just the worst critic and the worst person to yourself, or I should say, not forgive other people and hold resentment towards others. Usually, be bitter. Usually, they go together because essentially they are the same problem. You're seeing an outlook on somebody that you might also see on yourself. So, Cess, what can you tell me about that?
Why do I have to go first? Seriously.
Leah.
I have to think.
Leah, okay.
Okay.
Because
What was the question?
so unforgiveness, what can you tell me about that? As far have you ever experienced not being able to forgive somebody or not being able to forgive yourself?
Yeah, I think I've experienced both, and I think we all go through that. And it's really hard because I feel like I'm gonna be my biggest critic. I'm gonna be the person that like judges myself more than what Leah tells me or what you tell me. Like I'm the one that's gonna go through that. Like,
For sure.
You wanna stay on top of your game at all times.
right.
Yeah.
So I think something that I do is like really ask God to like bring me peace and not like humble myself, but
Yeah.
like really like ask God to like guide me through like
yeah,
like through that like chapter I guess that I'm like trying to figure out.
for sure.
So that's what I do.
I love that you said peace and you said humble, but humbling yourself is very important. I want to read a verse that I have here on my Apple Watch. Yeah, get it, please, if you can. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and it's chapter 4, verse 3, and it says, and this is Paul writing to the church of Corinthians. Let me give a little background information. The church of Corinthians were flexing like who they knew. They were like, no, I'm cool with Paul. No, I'm cool with this person. And so Paul's writing to them and acknowledging why they shouldn't flex and why Paul doesn't care who they flex with. And he says, I care very little. This is verse 3. I care very little if I am judged by you or by any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself. My conscience is clear, but that does not make me innocent. The Lord is who judges me. It is the Lord who judges me. So, Leah, what can you tell me about that verse? And Paul's saying here, I care very little what you think, and I care very little what I think. I'm good. I'm straight. I'm not tripping,
Yeah, I'm straight chilling.
But that doesn't make me innocent. What can you tell me about that?
I feel like the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that. Suena como que tengo un moco en la garganta.
No, you're good. You're good.
The first thing I think is like God doesn't care how you act in front of others. Like how
Yeah.
I pretend, like who I pretend to be in front of Noe and Cess and Danny, but who I am in private.
Wow.
Who I am, what I think about, because there's no matter if I'm super nice to Cess here, and then I go home and I'm like, oh, like says this, says that.
Yeah.
I don't do that. No.
Yeah.
No, but in the sense of like, or let's say you drop something. Oh, I'll throw it away for you.
Yeah.
Oh, why did I pick it up? I don't want to, like, you know what I mean? Kind
Yeah.
of things. It's not coming from your heart. You're just kind of
Right.
pretending to do
It just circles through. You know?
Yeah, you're
For
doing
sure.
it because you have to do it, because you're playing a part, because you're like, it's the dynamic. I
Yeah.
guess.
Right. You wanna hold up being this person in front of others, but like in reality, you're just, you're like, oh, why do I have to do this?
Yeah.
I love that you say that, because Danny, and this next question is for you, because Paul uses a word here in the translation that they translated it to. It translates to justify, but he uses a word that represents, like, if you're in front of a court, right? And you talked about having to prove yourself to people. Right. So a lot of the times, yes, the root of it is, you're judging yourself, you're judging others, but everybody has a judge within them. Right. And everybody is always trying to prove themselves to other people. And that is where things go wrong. So what can you tell me about that, Danny?
So it's like going through being in front of a judge, basically. It's like you want to make yourself as innocent as you can. You want to make yourself look as different than what you are in person in front of others. And it's like there's a saying that I go through. It's like there's always going to be a bad side to everything. Yeah. So it's like there's always going to be a bad side to a person. There's always going to be a bad side to a fruit. There's always going to be a bad side to something. And you just want to find the innocence in that. Yeah. So that's basically how Paul was. He was like, I'm not going to hold myself up to what your standards are, because I'm me and he's the only one that judges me. Wow. So it's like he's in his own conscience, like that it's clear. Yeah. So he doesn't really need to worry what others think, and that he doesn't have to fight that judgmental.
And it's crazy that he doesn't even have to worry what others think, and he doesn't even have to worry what he thinks about himself. And I'm going to read this next verse. It's 1 John chapter 3, verses 19 and 20. It says, "This is how we know that we belong to the truth, and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. If our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything." So, Cess, what can you tell me about how do you find the courage, and not the courage, but maybe the how do you forgive yourself? How does somebody forgive themselves after they've been carrying a weight, a burden, something that they messed up in? Yeah, you want to share something?
I can bring up an example. Basically, if you've seen like the Falcon and Winter Soldier, how Bucky's basically, it's perfect for that, because so Bucky is the Winter Soldier, and in the movies he was, yes, sort of spoiler, he was portrayed as this villain because he was brainwashed, and during the show he goes by trying to amend himself to others, and so that's what he was going through, because he had to amend himself to others that he wasn't that person.
Wow. And what did he always struggle with? The thoughts, the memories, the going back,
like the nightmares going through.
The nightmares. I want to say something about that because that resonated so much with me deeply. We chose behind the camera. He knows this. We were watching it, and Bucky. This is not a spoiler, by the way. And it's been out for a few days. It's not a spoiler. But Bucky was sitting in a therapy session, and he was working through the guilt that he felt and the resentment towards himself, right? Because a lot of the things that he did were kind of out of his control in a lot of ways. It was a trauma that was imposed on him. And I remember sitting in therapy myself, right, and talking about the things that I was feeling and telling myself, and these like intrusive thoughts that were just saying, you're a terrible person because of your past. You're not worthy of love. You know, all of these things that I was telling myself, and I'm sitting there in therapy. And so whenever I saw that episode, I was like, I know what that feels like.
It's the connections
to be your absolute worst critic, worst enemy. Mm-hmm. And I love what this verse says. It says, This is how we know that we belong to the truth, that we have our that, and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. What is that truth that we have to know? What is it, right? Is it right? We had talked about this in a podcast episode where people, you see posts and pages will tell you you're loved, you're seen, you're cared for, right? But what weight does that have? I feel like it doesn't have a lot of weight. It's just like throwing nice words into the air. But what the gospel tells us is that we, like Danny was saying, is that we go in front of a judge, and that judge says, "You are my beloved son, who I am well pleased in." Why? Because because Jesus was that son, and we read it in the Gospels, right? He endured everything for us, right? So how do you find what would you tell somebody to somebody that is having trouble forgiving themselves first? Says,
I think it all comes down to like really putting all of that into like laying it down.
Yeah.
Like giving it to God and let him like guide you through whatever circumstance you're in, like it's so hard like being in that position and like being very like vulnerable and like having to go through that. So I think by like laying all of that and like knowing in your heart that I'm going to give this to God and he's going to take care of it and he's going to take me wherever he wants me to be with what I lay down.
Wow.
So I think that's what I do.
Wow, that's powerful. And the amazing thing about that is that once you know that truth, right? Once you know a gospel truth, which is you are loved, you are forgiven, no matter what, right? You are justified no matter what. Okay? That changes your outlook on people. And once you have that humbled humility, that gospel humility that you don't deserve God's grace, yet he still loved you, yet he still went to the cross for you, you begin to see an outlook on people differently. And you no longer see them in the judgmental way that you see them before. So by forgiving yourself and knowing that you are forgiven, it becomes easier to forgive others. Leah, what can you tell me about that? Have you ever experienced that, or what can you add on to that?
I feel like for sure I've experienced it, because I feel like with everybody's different. So you're gonna find somebody that you struggle to like, I guess, understand, because I wouldn't say that you like no los puedes soportar, like, oh, but like you struggle
to get to know them. Like you want to see who they are, but it's hard. Yeah,
exactly. I feel like I agree that with you. When you accept your flaws and when you see that you're not perfect and when you see that you're perfect because God made you perfect, not because you're perfect. You're perfect because God forgave you, not because you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like that's when it comes, if you put that perspective onto others, it's the same way. It's like, he's not perfect, but he's trying.
Wow.
Or she's maybe she does this certain thing, but she's trying, she's aware, and she's doing the same thing I'm doing here.
Wow.
We're like, they refer to church as a hospital.
Yeah.
And if we're both in here, we both know we got something wrong.
Wow. Yeah, I want to close with this because everybody goes through this. I know that everybody goes through this thought in their mind. Is a girl once told me, she said, I don't want to go to that one thing, whether it was an event or whatever. She goes, because I feel like people don't like me, or I feel like people, see me and they judge me, right? And I stopped her, and I quoted TikTok instead of quoting the Bible. I quoted TikTok, and I saw this TikTok that said, "Nobody is right." It said, but this is true though, because we all operate this way. They said, "Nobody is thinking about how you look, what you're wearing, what." It's all in your head. Why? Really because weird. Everybody's thinking the same thing about themselves. Everybody's sitting there and thinking they must be looking at me. Everybody's doing that. And I told her that lie that you're telling yourself is not true, because we're all doing it. We're all going in front of a judge, whether it is our own selves, whether it is another person, whether it is an idol that we have. And we're all constantly trying to prove ourselves.
That is so true.
But in the gospel, we know that we are set free from that. Paul says that you are justified through Jesus Christ. In 1 John, it says, it says, if your own heart condemns you, know that God is greater than your heart. If you're having trouble forgiving yourself, know that God is greater than your own thoughts and your own feelings about yourselves. And he says, you are my son, you are my daughter, who I love and who I am well pleased in. Why? Because Jesus took our place, right? So we just want to close this podcast saying, if you're going through that, if you're struggling with that, go to the gospel, find that truth, that gospel truth. And we're so happy that you guys could join us this week. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
For more of this podcast, follow us on Instagram at Grace Youth Espanol and at Young and Heard.